Good evening, listeners, and welcome to tonight's broadcast on the Freedom Talk Show. My name is Yagoze, and I'm your host for tonight's broadcast. And this is a collaboration broadcast with the Lower Niger Radio, to be precise. And our guest, just like you rightly heard, is Mr. Tony Nadi of the Lower Niger Congress. Mr. Tony Nadi, welcome to the broadcast.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, my brother, for joining us on the broadcast tonight. Mr. Tony, looking at your press materials that have been out always, from what we can see, you run an organization called Lower Niger Congress. Please, could you talk us through what is Lower Niger Congress?
Okay, listen, I can't hear you properly anymore.
Hello, you.
Yeah, can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear Ima properly. I can't hear the other one properly.
Okay.
All right. Push through what Lower Niger Congress is all about.
He said what the Lower Niger Congress is all about. Tony, if you can hear me.
Yes, I can hear you now. The Lower Niger Congress is an organization that we had to put in place to pursue the self-determination agenda of the peoples of the Lower Niger, which in description we can call today's South, South, and Southeast, but strictly as ethnic nationalities. We're talking about the George, the Urobo, the Shekiri, the Igbo, all of the old Midwestern region and the Eastern region, but as ethnic nationalities. We are not functioning as, we're not relating as states, we're not relating as local government areas, nothing else other than as ethnic nationalities with definite boundaries. And it is on account of the United Nations instrument that has now elevated the right to self-determination to a pedestal where each of these nationalities can enjoy that right, because that right is available to you only if you are in your ancestral space. So what we have done is to get all of the ethnic nationalities in the bloc. It took us many years to secure, each of them into the project. It took more than 7 years of going from one ethnic group to the other. Finally, it made sense to all of them sufficiently for us to come as make out a map that include the entire territory with each of them, voluntarily being a part of it. So where we are now is that we did not want to be isolated like Biafra. And therefore, we also had to look out for other nationalities that are not too happy in the Nigerian project, so that while we are pursuing our own, they too can pursue their own. Since nobody has electricity, nobody has good road, nobody has railway, corruption is biting everybody. So in that regard, we formed a larger organization of which Lower Niger Congress is one, called Movement for New Nigeria. That Movement for New Nigeria is to dismantle Nigeria. That new Nigeria is that broken map I'm sure all of you have seen on the internet. That Nigeria is not working for us all across board, except for those who are sharing the booty in Abuja. And therefore, if there's a majority that wants to go organize their own self, according to how other countries do, it is in that regard that we have a Movement for New Nigeria encompassing Lower Niger Congress, the Odua People's Congress, and the Middle Belt Congress, meaning that 3/4 of what you call Nigeria today is cooperating to the exclusion of the Sharia belt in order to dismantle the Lugadian Union for everybody to take their portion. Those who want to cooperate will then, the day after, work out the terms of their cooperation. So Lower Niger Congress is the one doing the business for the old Eastern region with the Midwestern region as ethnic nationality. That's what we are.
Good. Hey.
For that explanation that you've just given to the listeners, to the people who are listening to your voice this very evening. From our understanding, the Lower Niger Congress is actually moving for referendum. And on this day, the 27th of May, 1967, the Constitutive Assembly of the Elders and Chiefs and Traditional men and women of the Old Eastern region mandated the military leadership to declare this region a free and independent sovereign state. And on this date, that is still a question or things that we should be that we're asking for on this particular day.
Sorry? Hello, we can't, I can't get him even. It's like we're having a breakdown in transmission. That is a network problem now between Spain and Germany here, I think. Yeah.
To Mr. Tony.
Okay, I think they are back. But we lost you a little. Our Spanish correspondent, please, can you come up again with your question or your statement?
Sorry, we lost that, but yeah, is what saying. I said, on this day, the 27th of May, 1967, the Consultative Assembly of the Elders and Chiefs and Traditional Rulers, men and women of the Old Eastern region of Nigeria, mandated the military leadership duty the program that was meted out to the people of the region by any other part of the country to declare the state and the region an independent sovereign state. On this day, you are embarking on the same mission again for self-determination. Why is this necessary at this point in time in 2015?
If we look back from the date you mentioned, you realize that the program started on the 28th of July, overnight 29 of 1956. And our supposed compatriots in the Nigerian project, including the one that had just won election to say he will govern Nigeria under this current constitution, Muhammad Buhari, as a lieutenant, they went around on a xenophobic campaign and killed over 100,000 of our people. And the killing spanned 3, 4, 5 months. And then in January of 1967, because the Union of Nigeria had broken down completely, there was no part of the country in which the leaders could across board meet, either in Lagos or anywhere elsewhere. And therefore, they had to go outside the country to Aburi to discuss how to, refloat the union, how to recommit everybody to the union. And after the Aburi discussions, agreements were reached to return the autonomy of the regions so that everybody could, there will be a period of a cooling period in which everybody would get back to their own territories, and then things to be worked out later. Now, they came back to Nigeria, and then Gowon, who was then pretending to be the head of the Nigerian government, having been advised by those who wanted to lead him in that wrong direction, abandoned that agreement, and more killings followed. And therefore, the necessity at that time in 1957 to protect those who had not been killed and who had found their way, either being originally resident in Eastern region or who had found their way back into the region from where they were being hunted like animals. And then for the 30 months that followed, Nigeria's response to that self-preservation effort of Eastern Nigeria was to go and kill them all the more. And at the end of the proceedings in 1970, more than 3.5 million people had been killed, some by bullets, some by hunger, all kinds of things. And then the war was brought to an end by certain interventions here and there. But after the war, the assets of the peoples of Eastern Nigeria got seized. In the name of abandoned people who ran for their lives, they came back to their properties, and you said they had abandoned the property. And by decree, those properties were seized and shared out to various people. The man who is presiding on Nigeria's Senate as of today was a major in Port Harcourt, in charge of throwing out, he was in part of the task force that threw out people from their properties in Port Harcourt. And from seizing their assets, you ask them to return their monies to be changed to Nigerian pounds. Those monies were seized, and only 20 pounds were given per account, not even per head. And then in that having seized all their things, you went on to do an indigenization decree by which all of the companies they built got sold out, and their monies were used as loans to other people from other parts of the, particularly the western region, and then they lost their investments in all parts of the country, having lost their assets at home, and having lost the money that could have been the immediate thing to begin to work with. It went on and on. They couldn't be admitted beyond a certain rank in the military. They couldn't be allowed to rise beyond a certain level in the civil service. All of it just scorched earth policy. Infrastructure was, deliberately degraded. The roads were not to be done. Even electricity, the most basic of all things, electricity. The government of Eastern region of old knew that people would need electricity. Therefore, the Oji River power plant that runs on coal was built. But Nigeria has shut down that Oji River power plant as if coal is no longer to be used to generate electricity. South Africa, that is 50,000, that is only 1/3 of Nigeria, runs on 48,000 megawatts of electricity. 90% of it comes from coal. But because Nigeria did not want electricity in eastern Nigeria, there's no single power plant, as I speak with you, apart from the little attempt at Aloji by Patun Naji, for which reason they threw him out of government. So it's been a targeted, decay on the people on eastern Nigeria, such that you either had to go overseas on exile, economic exile, or you ran to Abuja or Lagos. The eastern Nigeria is now a jungle. And even the matter of democracy and election, look at all the people who have been allowed to win elections in those places. They are people Nigeria was sure, were going to degrade the place further. Criminals, outright criminals. No decent person is allowed to contest or win election in the place because the Nigerian machinery was always there to make sure. So we now have a society in which, even the matter of kidnapping that came, the first set of in our traditional setting, kidnapping carried a death sentence. But Nigeria found a way to introduce kidnapping when armed robbery could not prevent our people from coming home to try to invest, to try to repair. When all the infrastructure decay did not prevent our people from trying to rebuild. The first case of kidnapping, you remember, it was a sitting assistant inspector general of police called Raphael Ike that went to the government house in Oka to kidnap the governor there, put him in the boot of a car. And from then on, one kidnap led to the other until it was fully commercialized to make sure that anybody who ventured to go to the east to invest or do anything stood the risk of being kidnapped. Nigeria deliberately introduced it. We have evidence. So in all of this, our people have been traumatized to the point where it was better to think of something else to do, because those who are doing it knew what they were doing. They had the numbers to do it. And all efforts to get us back to table to discuss the union of Nigeria so that it could be a union of agreement, not the imposition that it was at the beginning, which was reinforced in 1966. So we've been in the union against our will. And we now come to democracy. What we have seen in this last election is the reenactment of the conspiratorial alliance between the western region of Nigeria and the old northern region, in which they join hands and become a majority. And they back themselves up with violence. This is the first time they will be going into an election without being in control of the regular armed forces, which they had used in the past. And that was the reason for floating Boko Haram. If anybody is in doubt, let us remember that in 2010, after the demise of the former president, Yeradua, when it became clear that Jonathan might be running for presidency, those elements in the political leadership of the North, those spokesmen of the North, including one Lawa Keita, who was governor in Kaduna State, did threaten that if Jonathan were to become president, candidate of the party, and therefore president, that they will make the country ungovernable. As they were doing that, issuing that threat in 2010, was it petition they were going to write? No. It was because they had worked out what will happen. And from the very day of the election, papas were killed because they were seen to have worked with the people who voted to install the Jonathan. from the wrong part of the country, because that's their own calculation. So in all of this, if you go back to, I could go all the way to 1914, then let us make a stop in 1960 to see that in the week of independence, while the rest of the country was drinking champagne, that the British were retreating, Ahmadu Bello was telling his listeners a different story. To say that the new nation called Nigeria to be an estate of their great-grandfather, Usman Dan Fodio, that they will ruthlessly prevent a change of power, using the Middle Belt as winning tools and the South as a conquered territory, and never allow them to rule over the North, nor to have control over their future. This is reported in the Parrot newspaper of 12th October 1960. And from that point on, you begin to look at all of those who created the structures by which we have to work today. The 33 states we have now, started with the 12 states government created to undermine the autonomy of the regions in 1967. The other additions to it were made by Murtala Mohammed in 1976, by Ibrahim Bangida when he came after, and then Abacha added the last. So we now have 33 states in which Eastern Nigeria is a minority that can be neglected and not consulted on anything of political decisions. We have several of local government areas, of which Kano has 44 portions. Bayelsa of Eastern Nigeria, from where the oil money must come, has only 8 local government areas. Even if Jonathan was to be president for 10 years, the authority to alter any of those things lie in the National Assembly. And the representation there is such that those who impose all these things on us are the ones in majority. And because they always had the Southwest, a renegade wing of the Southwest, working with them, it was that coalition between the two of them that prevented Azikiwe from presiding over Nigeria, after fighting all of what he fought to get the British out. It was that same coalition, that conspiratorial coalition between them, that saw Awolowo coming out from prison where he had been, in 1960, to come to work with them as subjugating himself to go on a mayor school certificate holder for almost 9 years. In between them, 3.5 million of our people got killed. And by decree, they made life impossible for us. Thereafter, in 1975, when Murtala Mohammed came, of all people who could have been chief of staff, it was Olusegun Obasanjo that he found. And between the two of them, they imposed the 1979 Constitution, which they wrote before they called the Constituent Assembly. We went on from there to see 1999, after Ekweme and Co. had formed G34 to form the PDP. Obasanjo was excavated from prison, half dead, by Ibrahim Bangida and Asalam Abaka, his cousin, and was installed president against everybody's protestation. So what happened in this last electoral round, in which the Southwest, the renegade wing of the Southwest, led by Tinubu this time, it was first Awolowo and then Obasanjo, and now Tinubu has stepped into that shoe, leading the active political players in an alliance with the North to undo the East. I'm sure you all recall when Murtala Nyako, who was governor, I think he's still, I think they removed him now, the former chief of naval staff, when he raised a letter, to the 19 state governors against Jonathan, where he described Jonathan as an element of Eastern Nigeria that was out to avenge the killings against the East, when Jonathan sent in the army to check what Boko Haram was doing. You saw how they ganged up and shouted all over the place, using the media that was controlled in Lagos to turn the whole thing upside down. So if we had 10 kilograms of resin in 1966 to want, or 67 to want to leave the Union, we have 1,000 kilograms today because opportunities are being lost. The best of our brains are being sent out of the country because mediocrity has become the standard which we must abide with. And what can you do without electricity? What can you do in a situation where falsehood is preferred to truth? What can you do in a situation where darkness is preferred to light? And we're discussing 3,000 megawatts of electricity, where coal is lying waste in Enugu. The only reason why we cannot generate any, megawatts for ourselves is that the Constitution says it cannot be done. Who wrote that Constitution, other than the descendants of Ahmadu Bello? So we have come to the point where, in addition to all of this, in year 2000, the 12 northernmost states of Nigeria introduced Sharia law, from Sokoto Kebi, Kano, all the way to Maiduguri. From that point on, some of us could not function from Sokoto or Kano or Maiduguri. But they could function all around the country. And because they owe it a duty to their God to kill the infidel. Who is the infidel here? So it has come to a matter of life and death.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much there. Let's continue. So over to you back again in Spain there, please.
But
Yeah, go on, please. Sorry,
Congress,
sorry.
particularly because